Welcome to tonight's Action Coaching Club live training call. It's Lou Dallo. Welcome. Nice to have you here. Tonight we're going to do a keyword and SEO primer. Now, I use the word primer specifically to imply to you that what we're going to talk about tonight is not going to be advanced, sophisticated, excuse me, ninja guru tricks. These are basically the essentials of keyword research and SEO that I think are enough to get you the bulk of your results and enough to get you going, get started building your list, getting opt-ins, driving traffic, and so on. I'll explain why I want to keep it at this level in just a minute, but for purposes of tonight's discussion, think about this as a primer, just an introduction to the essentials of how you can do your keyword research and your search engine optimization. And if you're not familiar with these terms, don't worry, we'll get into them as we go along. That probably should say keyword research and SEO primer, but never mind. So what I'd like to share with you tonight is how to do research and how to select keywords for your market. Lately, through the mailbag and through the questions that we've had during the live calls, I found that a lot of people are asking about this. You know, how do I do my research? How do I find the right keywords for my market? And how do I determine which ones to use and whether it's a viable market and all these kinds of questions. So I thought it might be a good idea to just delve into that a little bit. Now, we're not going to do any reviews or site reviews or anything like that. So we're not going to be able to do your keyword research specifically. That's not what tonight's about. It's to sort of teach you the principles and the processes that you can use and the tools that you can use to do some great keyword research and search engine optimization on your own. What I'm going to focus on, especially as far as search engine optimization is concerned, is what I'm calling the essential 20%. So you've all heard the 20-80 rule, right? And so if you focus on 20% of the activity, it's going to give you 80% of the results. And it's important to note that this is not going to give you 100% of the results, because to get that extra 100%, what happens is you're going to need a lot more money, a lot more time, and a lot more expertise than you're probably willing to invest. And if there comes a time when your business is doing well and this 20% that you do brings you lots of traffic and sales and so on, then you might decide to then invest in that other 20%. But for the time being, I want you to focus on this 20%, because here's the thing. What I find is, for when people focus on that 100%, like doing the ultimate SEO optimization, getting everything right and everything optimized and so on, it becomes so overwhelming they don't do it at all. So what happens is, in the quest for perfection, in the quest for guru mastery, ninja search engine optimization, they don't do it at all. So what I'd like to do is give you a list of things that you can do and that you could do easily and that you're likely to do with a little bit of attention and intention that will actually give you results. And in fact, I have clients using these techniques who are getting tens of thousands of visitors a month just based on what I'm going to share with you today. Now, having said that, you don't have to search engine optimize your site. If you decide to go entirely, through paid advertising and referrals and affiliate marketing and joint ventures and things like that, there are other ways to bring traffic to your site and bring visibility to your site. But it seems like there's a lot of us who are, thinking about search engine optimization. So I'm going to give you a map, a roadmap, if you will, to how you can do it. So let's start with keyword research essentials. So one thing that I want to start by saying is that how you choose, let me see if I can, there we go. How you choose your keywords for the purposes of optimizing your content for search engines is different than how you choose your keywords for doing search engine advertising, or search marketing, let's call it. So I'm going to call SEO and SEM. SEO being search engine optimization, SEM being search engine marketing. And search engine marketing advertising basically means that you're bidding on keywords and you're paying search engines for the people who click on your ads and come to your landing page based on the keyword phrase that they're typing into the search engines. Okay, so Google has their AdWords program, MSN and Yahoo have their MSN Ad Center program. If you're advertising on a keyword basis, that is a different strategy in selecting keywords than it is when you're doing it for your content and for your websites to optimize it. And we'll talk it, it's probably 70% the same and 30% different, but that 30% is really critical, because once you see how it works, you'll see that you could have been wasting a whole lot of time going down the wrong path, choosing SEO based keywords for your advertising. Okay, so this is going to be really important, and the main reason for this is because SEO and SEM have different outcomes, right? So SEO, search engine optimization, in this case, you're competing with other websites and other blogs and other content for positioning in the SERPs, and the SERPs are the search engine results pages. And if you're not familiar with what I mean by that, so if you go to Google, and in this case I typed six-pack abs, okay, this is the search engine result page. So when you type in a phrase and you click search into Google, the page that comes up is called the SERP, or the search engine results page. Okay, so if you find me referring to that, you'll know what that means. Now, in search engine marketing, when you're bidding on the keywords, you're not competing with other websites, really. You're competing with other advertisers. And now what you're competing for is positioning on the ad results. So if we go back here, interestingly enough, there's only one ad in here. It's hard to believe. Let's try to lose weight instead. Okay, here we go. So this is a more traditional search engine results page, and you have all of this stuff here that's highlighted in kind of a background of eggshell. Those are advertisers that are bidding on the phrase lose weight, and all of these in the right hand column also are advertisers bidding on the phrase lose weight. And these are the people that you're competing with when you're advertising, when you're finding keywords to bid on for search engine marketing. On the other hand, the people that you're competing with when you're doing search engine optimization are the ones here. If you can see my cursor, in fact, let me try to highlight it for you. Okay, all of this in the center here, okay, that is the search engine optimization result of the search engine pages. This is where Google will display websites that it thinks is highly relevant and valuable to the search engine phrase that the user types in here. So what you want to do if you're doing search engine optimization is design your site and your content in such a way that when somebody types in a phrase that you want, that you are optimized for, you would ideally like to be one of the top 10 here on page 1. Or close. Now, realistically, page 1 is the only one that seems to really matter, but if you get the right phrases, you can do that. So here's the thing I want you to notice. There's no real limit to how many advertisers can be here. And if you have enough time and money, and especially money, you can bid your way to the top of the advertising columns, right? So in a way, in a sense, search engine marketing is actually, if you have enough money, there's almost no skill involved in many ways, because if you pay enough, you'll show up here, and if you show up at the top, people will click through to your site. That's kind of the easy thing. But search engine optimization is another thing. I mean, there are billions and billions and billions of websites, and very often, like if you look, for example, on this page, where are the results? Instant is on. Hold on one second. Okay, lose weight. Okay, normally, I don't know why this is on. Let me turn instant off. Normally, it'll tell you how many web pages there are that are. Okay, looks like they redesigned this a little bit lately. Anyway, so there could be literally millions of pages all bidding for this placement on this location, and it's all based on content, primarily content and backlinks. And nowadays there are people who are spending a lot of money and have a lot of expertise for optimizing the content, so it's a little bit more challenging for you to get placement here. However, you can do pretty well if you do a decent job of getting at least a moderate amount of traffic come your way through search engine optimization. So and by the way, that's the reason I tend to prefer to pay for advertising, because it doesn't take a whole lot of skill to spend money and show up and have your ad show up. Now, it does take a little skill to make sure that your ad gets clicked on, and it does take skill to make sure that once they land on your web page, they opt in. However, it's a whole lot easier than search engine optimization. So So you can see we have different things that we're trying to accomplish when we optimize for search engine placement versus when we're optimizing for pay-per-click advertising. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through primarily using a tool that I tend to use whenever I do any kind of keyword research, which you can get a free copy of it. It's a free download. You can go to freemarketsamurai.com. And that'll take you to the Market Samurai page where you can download the tool for free. Now, if you do decide to keep it, you can buy it. There's a premium version of it, but even if you don't do that, the free version is going to do a lot of great keyword research for you, and that functionality will always be available to you. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, go grab a copy of this and play with it. Specifically, go to their dojo, which is their training area. So if we go freemarketsamurai.com and you go to the dojo. Okay, this is really great training. A lot of what I'm going to tell you tonight is actually based on the training that they do in here. So it's excellent training, and they have a tool that helps you implement the training very easily, and you'll see how to do that. So this is really my favorite tool for doing keyword research right now. I recommend you get a copy of it. Okay, so let's talk about some of these criteria. And once again, this is primarily, it's been articulated by the guys at Market Samurai, so I'm going to try to do them justice. But essentially, it's stuff that you may have heard of before, but they put it into a thing that they call the 4 golden rules of keyword research. And so I'm going to just go through them with you, and I'll show you how we can do some of that research, and then hopefully show you how you could end up with the first 50, 100, 200 keywords that you could do for the purposes of search engine marketing, or how you could end up with 20, 50 long tail keyword phrases for search engine optimization. So the first criteria is relevance. Now this is really important because essentially that's how Google works. Google works on relevance. In fact, the entire Google machine is designed so that when someone types in a couple of words in the Google search engine box, that Google takes what it considers to be the most relevant, unique, and authoritative content related to that search phrase and returns it in the search engine results page. Okay, so what we're going to do when we look at keywords, and what we're going to do when we're writing content, is we're going to trigger Google to understand what our content is all about and increase our chances of having the search engine display our page when those keyword phrases are typed in. So the keywords must be relevant, so either directly or indirectly to what your audience needs and wants. A little typo there. What your audience needs and wants. And I have the is in there because I was going to say what your audience is searching for. And obviously what they're searching for is what they need and what they want, but sometimes they don't always use the very same phrase that you might be thinking of. So that's why I say directly or indirectly. So for example, if I want to get six-pack abs, I may be looking for something that says how to get six-pack abs. On the other hand, I might be looking for something that says how to lose weight, or I might look at something that says get fit exercises, or I might be looking for abdominal exercises, or I might be looking for a crunch machine, or I might be looking for burn belly fat, or I might be looking at great abs without equipment. So lots of different ways that I can say kind of the same thing, and so you want to be aware that your keywords must be relevant to the direct need, the exact phrase that they're searching for, and also related, complementary, and what they call semantically related phrases. In other words, different ways to call the same thing, or when you're talking about gym equipment, for example, it's indirectly related to the idea of working out, which is indirectly related to the idea of getting six-pack abs. So those are what we would call sort of semantic relationships. Now, there's a couple of ways to make your keyword list more relevant, or at least to identify the things that make it relevant. Now, I'm going to jump over to the Market Samurai tool here in a second, but here's basically what we're going to do. So first of all, we're going to do a visual scan. And actually, I even leave the visual scan until after I've done these other things. So we're going to specify negative and positive modifiers. We could increase the length of the phrase. We're going to make sure that the phrase itself is related to the outcomes we want. In other words, that what we call phrase to broad match ratio, that means how closely are the individual words in the phrase actually indicative of what we want. So is it, for example, a keyword phrase might be ACB, and we're looking for ABC. Well, it's possible that ACB gives that phrase an entirely different meaning, and so the phrase to broad match ratio is very low. On the other hand, if if you mix and match the terms, or if you have different ways of phrasing it, and it still gives an indication of what the original phrase is, then the phrase to broad match ratio is very high. And the other thing that we can do is that when we start to refine our search, we can have it look for broad phrase and exact searches. So let me start with this, broad phrase and exact searches, because I think that's kind of an essential thing that you really ought to know when you're looking at Google keywords. So if I go to, I'm trying to find my, well, let's just type it in here, google.com. Okay, so if I am looking for six-pack abs, this is called a broad phrase. And the reason it's called a broad phrase is because I'm essentially saying I want Google to return any content that has the word six, or the word pack, or the word abs anywhere and in any order in the content. So if there was content that was just pack, P-A-C-K, and there wasn't a lot of content about six-pack abs, then that content for pack would actually show up. So if I say six-pack, see some of the other things that it's looking at now is six-pack, which is an IMDb that looks like a song or or some kind of media. IMDb is a movie database. Six-pack France, okay, this is an online store. How to get six-pack, so this one is talking about the abs. This is a gay radio podcast, has nothing to do with six-pack abs. So, but the fact that six-pack shows up in the content and the title and the description, now I'm getting a hodgepodge of things, right? So the longer the phrase, the more accurate. However, basically any content that has any one of those words or more in any order is going to be a match. So you can imagine that when you do your research, it looks like there's a lot of results, a lot of traffic related to this, but it's not really that relevant, right? All the time, not all those results are going to be relevant. So, so what we can do is we can make it more relevant by saying, I only want results where the content has this phrase in it, six-pack abs. Okay, so unless it has those words and in that order in the content, I don't want to see it. Okay, so here's for example some phrases: the truth about six-pack abs, how to get six-pack abs workout, I want six-pack abs. So you notice here six-pack abs appears in every phrase, and if you go down here in the search results, you're going to see there's six-pack abs, six-pack abs, six-pack abs. Everywhere you see it's six-pack abs. Now it's not only the keywords six-pack abs, it's the phrase. So as long as this thing in quotes appears anywhere in the phrase of content, then I want to see it. Okay, so we're getting a little bit more specific. So if there was something that was just called abs, or for example, in the first case, if I said six-pack, you could see I could get six-pack shortcuts, six-pack bags, six-packs diets. Could even say six-pack beer, right? So if I do this, six-pack beer, then I'm saying it's not enough to return six or pack or six-pack. I have to have the entire phrase six-pack beer. Okay, and of course it means that it can appear anywhere in the phrase. Now, obviously there are going to be fewer results that are going to directly match that, right? So you're going to see the traffic reduce, but the accuracy increase. And then if you say I want an exact match, and you put your phrase excuse me, in square brackets, then what we're saying is really unless that phrase appears exactly as is in the content, don't return it. Now you're rarely going to find a phrase that exists in isolation like this, but what it's basically saying is this is the most specific that I want to get. I want the phrase six-pack abs in the content exactly like that, even if there's no other phrase around it. So if the title was six-pack abs, the exact phrase would be returned. even though it may or may not be inside a longer phrase. Even if that's the only those are the only words that are in the content, it'll trigger a search result. So now what this means, though, from an advertising point of view, is that your ad only shows up when the person typing in the search phrase types only the words six-pack abs. So in other words, if you're looking for traffic and you're bidding on the keyword phrase, the exact phrase six-pack abs, and I come into Google and I type six-pack abs, your ad could be triggered. But the second that I type six-pack abs workout, your ad will not be triggered. Okay? Now, if you use a phrase match, then your ad will be triggered when I type six-pack abs, as well as when I look for six-pack abs workout. Okay, because you're saying as long as the phrase six-pack abs shows up in the search phrase, I want my ad to show up. So you can see what's happening here, right? Your criteria for matching the ad is getting more and more narrow, more and more specific, and therefore you're going to find that there are fewer and fewer search phrases as you get more specific. However, you also know that you're going to weed out the things that are not related to your search phrase, to your advertising. So you know that excuse me here. You know that if you put six-pack abs this way, then you could write an ad knowing without a doubt that the only person who's going to see your ad is the person who types six-pack abs and only six-pack abs in there, so that there's no way that your advertising is not relevant to what they're looking for. Because now what you can do is you can put that keyword phrase in your ad. Okay, so this is the idea, and now most tools, by default, they're going to do broad match when they look at traffic. So it's important to know that when you're doing your research, you're generally looking at broad match results, unless you specifically narrow it down. Okay, so but you can see the point here being that the more specific as you go from broad to phrase to exact match, then you're getting more and more relevant to what the user's looking for, right? So where relevancy is a key, specifying the matching is one way to increase the relevancy. Now for using the tool, so I got here six-pack abs. I don't know why I decided to go this way, but we're going to check it out. Now when you're using the tool here, one of the things you could do is, so six-pack abs, I'm not going to generate up to 800 keywords right now just because it takes a long time to do those kinds of things. So let's just go ahead and generate keywords related to six-pack abs. Okay, so this is actually loading the Google Keyword Tool and pulling out from the Google Keyword Tool all the words that it can, that it can find related to six-pack abs. So what is this? I can't even tell. Gee whiz, I can't make that out to save my life. Oh, okay. This is easier. Okay, so hopefully it won't take too long for it to come back. Good, there we go. Okay, so then what you could do is you could go through each of these keywords and you could delete the ones that are not related. So I'm hoping there's something here about six-pack beer. Okay, so someone who's looking for six-pack ab photos, you could say, I'm looking for something really unrelated. Okay, so let's say, for example, I don't want anybody who's looking for free stuff. So I could do one of two things. I could either X this out. So if I just X this out, I'm going to say I don't want the whole phrase, but I'm going to actually click on free, and then I'm going to say I don't want anything with the word free in it. So now I've created a negative keyword here. So free. Let's say I wasn't looking to help people with diets. I just wanted to help them with workouts. So I could look at diet, and I could remove diet. Okay, and so now you'll see that I don't have the keyword diet anywhere in my returns. Maybe I don't want to, anybody who's looking on YouTube, I don't want in them. I don't want to talk to them. Maybe ebooks. You know, it's got, I guess maybe I can keep that. Mike Geary review. Okay, you get the idea. Now, what I could do now is, so that's the negative keyword. So I'm saying I don't want any keywords that have the word free or diet or YouTube in them. So don't show me those phrases. I'm not interested in optimizing on them. I'm not interested in getting traffic on those. On the other hand, let's say, for example, workout. I wanted to absolutely make sure that I was targeting only those people who are looking for a workout. So I know that I'm looking at six-pack abs, and I could say workout and make that a positive modifier. Okay, now I've got a list of keywords where people are looking for six-pack abs workouts. Okay, now obviously that's very narrow, but you can see as I get more and more narrow, I get more and more relevant, right? So in terms of relevancy, these are the techniques that you can use. Adding positive keywords, which are specifying very specifically what you're looking for. Your phrase must have that. Or negative keywords, very specifically what you don't want to optimize for. So let's get rid of that. Let's see. Yeah, so maybe I want to do a keyword campaign on fast six-pack abs. There you go. So these are all the keyword phrases. I'm looking for people, like, let's say my product really talks about how to get six-pack abs fast and easy. So I might want fast and maybe easy here. Okay, so nobody's got easy. How about quick? There you go. Okay, so now I could do my search engine optimization or my search engine marketing for people who are specifically looking for quick and fast ways to get six-pack abs, right? So the relevance of my advertising and my keywords increases. How relevant the keywords are to the content that Google is going to return is getting closer and closer, because I'm getting more and more specific. Okay, let me just clear that. And so then the other thing that you would want to do, so let's just do a keyword analysis here. Now we talked about, by the way, this by default uses the 4 golden rules filter, which is the filter that we're talking about using. So you're going to see things that are already checked here. Don't worry, we'll talk about them eventually, but here's the other part we're looking for, the phrase to broad ratio. So we also want to look at keywords that have at least a 15% phrase to broad ratio. In other words, you know, that they're fairly, the ordering is fairly relevant to the goals, to the words that we're looking for. Now, somehow here, I ended up with a lot fewer keywords. Let me update that. Let me generate. Somehow I filtered but couldn't clear the filter, so let me just regenerate all the set of keywords. What have I done here? There's a lot, 90 are filtered. I'm trying to remember how I filtered them. Okay, I'm going to just start this again because I set a filter, but I can't remember what I was doing here. So let's go ahead and do this. New keyword, six-pack abs. Go into the keyword research. Oh, it might have filtered them according to the tool. Yeah, because there's 90 filtered there. So let me just clear. Okay, let me just clear. Oops, son of a gun. Sorry guys, bear with me. Been a while since I used this tool, so the interface changes every once in a while. And I'm thinking what happened was, yeah, 90 are still filtered. So I'm guessing that if I remove this filter, say no filters, there we go, there's 100 of them. Okay, now, so what I'm doing, let me just do this though. Put 15 here, 15%, and then analyze keywords. Okay, so I was hoping not to show you all the filters at once because we haven't gotten to the other filters yet. So for now, let's just see if any phrases are filtered as a result of the PBR. Now, the PBR is important because, you know, especially if you're doing broad matching on words, you're going to get words that are going to match. They're going to be out of order. The meaning is going to be completely irrelevant, and then it's going to end up triggering your ad, and you're going to pay for a lot of click-throughs that, you know, aren't related to what you want. So you're going to get untargeted traffic. And what we're trying to do here through relevance is not only to show up properly in the search engine results and to do the SEO, but also we want, you know, our ads to be relevant so that we're not paying through the nose for stuff that is we're not going to get any benefit from. So we want to make sure that the visitors clicking through and coming to our landing pages are the ones that are likely to opt in and actually want our stuff, because remember, we pay for each one of those clicks. Okay, so now what's happening here, I'm going to talk about some of these other categories a little bit later, but essentially what I'm looking for here is, you'll notice that 26 keywords were filtered out because the phrase to broad match ratio was less than 15. So just think of it here in terms of getting more specific and more targeted by telling, now this is not something you can do manually, so you need this tool to do that. However, it is one of the ways that you can increase the relevancy. Now, the other thing that you can do, which was actually the first one on my list, but I usually wait until this point to do it, is that after everything's filtered out and you have it looking the way you want, then I actually go through each one of the words, each one of the phrases, and I decide whether or not it's actually relevant. So I might say, for example, oh, female six-pack abs. Okay, that's not relevant to me. I'm going to just take it right out of there. Now, women. Okay, so I just saw it. Where would it go? Let me scroll up a little bit here. So women. I might say that's not relevant to me. You know, so you go through after you filtered it down, because you could literally start with, if you use an AdWords account, you can start with 800 keywords. So I prefer not to go through all 800 and decide whether I want them or not. What I do is I make them more and more relevant. I do the PBR, I reduce them, so I filter out all the stuff that's not going to meet my requirements in terms of traffic or in terms of PBR and so on. And then when I have it down to the smallest number possible, then I start going through and deleting them. So it just means I spend less time going through long lists of keywords, right? So this is typically the point where I'll go through and I say, well, I don't really have anything about Mike Geary, and I didn't, here I would have had that free, so let me take that out, okay? And so you can go on and just go through this until you have the keywords that are relevant to your domain, and then all you have to do at that point is export them into a text file, basically, or a CSV file if you prefer, and then they're ready to copy and paste into your Google AdWords or into your MSN Ad Center account. Okay, so that's the first pass at getting keywords, and we're going to go a little bit deeper, but that's the first pass at getting the first bunch of keywords and filtering them on the basis of relevance first. Okay, so so just to remind you, that what we did was we specified the negative and positive modifiers. So the words that absolutely must be in the phrase, or the words that absolutely must not be in the phrase, for us to filter them in. We could choose to have a phrase length of 3 or more words, like here, for example. We could have said, oops, where'd it go? Let me go back here. We could have said, I only want long tail variations, so if it doesn't have at least 3 words in the phrase, I don't want to know about them. Okay, and so we've filtered down to 66 from 72, so you could do that as well. You could, of course, you set the broad match ratio, and you could determine to go from broad to phrase to exact match. So here you might say, for example, just give me a phrase match. Okay, and we filter, I think, no, it's still 66. Let's see if we got an exact match. Yeah, so we're going to trigger on both the so the broad and the phrase match. Seems like it's the same for some reason. I would have expected fewer, but there you have it. Okay, so you could, so these are the ways that you get more and more relevant. This is how you start filtering down from the universe of keywords to the top 100 or 200 that you want to use. Now, when we go back here, I just want to also remind you, see where it says generate up to 800 keywords, right? So if I added my AdWords account here, let me just see. I think that's going to work. Okay, and see now I've got this here. So when if I were to generate keywords here, instead of the 66 or however, let me see, 66 and 28, so almost 100 keywords, I could actually generate up to 800. And that's just because if you have a if you have an AdWords account, it has access to more of the database, and it uses that to retrieve more words from the Google keyword database. So if you do use this tool, you definitely want to set up an AdWords account. An AdWords account is as easy as opening up a Gmail account and then just going in and changing your profile or setting your profile in AdWords. This does not mean you have to spend any money to do the keyword research or anything like that. It just means you're going to get a lot more words to choose from. So if I were to generate keywords here, I could generate up to 800. Now I won't do that because sometimes it takes a long time to generate 800, and I don't want to keep you waiting, but you will get definitely a lot more than the 100 or so that we got without it. Okay, so let me just take it out. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, let's talk about traffic volume. Now this is probably the place where most people fall down when it comes to choosing keywords, because in SEO, in search engine optimization, they are taught that that the longer the keyword phrase, the more likely it is that your content is going to be thematically specific and congruent and relevant, and therefore you should optimize your keywords based on the long tail keywords, the more obscure keywords. And the problem with that is, we mentioned before, that the longer tailed keywords, i.e., what I mean by longer tail is that there are more words in the keyword phrase. So for example, six-pack is a 2-word tail. Six-pack abs is 3 words tail, 3 words long. The tail is 3 words long. How to get six-pack abs, it's a 6-phrase. The tail is 6 words long, right? So the longer tail keywords, i.e. the keyword phrases that have more words in them, are definitely more specific. So for example, business coach in Toronto is a lot more specific than coach, and it's even more specific than business coach. The problem is that there are a lot less business coaches in Toronto that are going to show up in the search engine results as far as traffic is concerned, compared to just coach or business coach. And so very often people use very long tail keywords. Well, nobody's bidding on them. There's hardly any traffic that comes from them. They're not commercially viable, and so you're doing a great job of optimizing and you're showing up on page 1, but nobody cares. Okay, and this happens a lot, and it's actually one of the dirty little tricks that really bug me when people do this. But they say, oh, I got page 1 ranking in 24 hours, and you say, yeah, great, for what phrase? And it's like some obscure phrase that nobody's ever typing in. That there's like 20 searches a year for it. Well, yeah, it's easy to get number 1 page ranking for a phrase that nobody cares about, but can you do the same thing for a word like diet or money, or internet marketing, or get out of debt, or lose weight? Whole different scenario, right? So we do want to get the long tail sometimes. There's a balance here, because we want to make sure that we can compete. The longer the tail, the less the traffic also means the more relevant our ads can be, the less we're competing with other advertisers or other content producers. But the downside is that there's obviously going to be less traffic. And so be sure that there's enough traffic to sustain your business when you're choosing your keywords. Because as it turns out, 90% of all keywords have low traffic volumes. And a lot of people they'll get a bunch of keywords that are relevant, but don't happen to have any traffic volume associated with them. And then they go, how come I'm not getting any visitors to my page? Well, did you check the traffic volume? Well, yeah, there's like 1,000 a year. Okay, 1,000 a year ain't going to cut it, because that's less than 100 a month. which is less than, what, 3 a day. And if anybody else is bidding on those keyword phrases, you're not going to see any traffic, because if you're one of 5 people bidding for 3 keywords a day, guess what? You're not likely to see any traffic. Okay, so be sure when you, and by the way, of course, any individual phrase, if it has tens of thousands of searches a month, is good. But also bear in mind, if you compile a whole group of long tail phrases so that collectively they generate 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 searches, then you're still okay. So any individual keyword doesn't have to do all of the heavy lifting to drive all of the traffic, but then make sure that you have enough long tail keywords to give you enough traffic volume. Now, there's a difference between the number of searches and the amount of traffic that you'll get. And so what you typically see in the keyword tool is it will tell you how many searches are being received in the database for that particular keyword phrase. However, especially when it comes to search engine optimization, remember we said that everybody's competing for that that coveted space in the middle of the search engine results page, and only 10 are going to show up there. Well, it turns out, and I'm trying to remember, this is actually I'm trying to remember desperately whether this is search engine. Yeah, I don't remember now if this is advertising or search engine, but yeah, I think it's search. It's organic. Okay, so these numbers are for organic searches. So what this means is that of all of the people who search, the number one spot, i.e. the top result, is going to get only 42% of the total traffic. In other words, it doesn't get 100%, right? So if you see a keyword that says, well, there's 100,000 keyword searches on it, well, you can assume that 420,000 of them are going to go to the top spot. And then the second spot is going to get 12%, the third spot 8%, the fourth to seventh spot respectively is going to get 6, 5, 4, 3%, and then the other ones are like spread amongst the rest, right? So so it's important to understand when you're working out these numbers that even though something may look good on the surface, hey, look, 2,000 searches a month, that you're really looking at less than half of that if you happen to be at the top spot. And notice how dramatically the numbers change in terms of traffic between spot 1 and spot 2, right? So if you happen to be in the second spot, you're going to see 12% of the traffic volume numbers that Google gives you. So if there's 1,000 searches and you can optimize your page to show up in the second spot, you're going to see 120 of those. Ideally, you can see as much as 120, right? If you're in the third spot, you're going to see 80 and so on. So you could see out of 1,000 searches, 3%, you can see 30 searches or 30 visitors a day from a keyword phrase that has 1,000 searches a day. Okay, big discrepancy. So be sure you're always thinking in terms of traffic volume, not keyword searches. And Market Samurai will help you to do that. Now, when you're using Market Samurai from a criteria point of view, we recommend that you look at something that has at least 80, a traffic score, SEOT, of 80 a day, or almost 2,500 a month. So if you think about that, that's over 5,500 searches a month. So if you're working in a market where you can't find at least 5,500 searches a month, then you're probably not going to get enough traffic to sustain what you want to do. Okay, so you're going to have to work a little harder, or get more keywords, or maybe look at a new niche market, because this may not be enough to sustain your business. Okay, so you want to think about at least 2,500 searches a month. 2,500 visitors a month, which translate, if you divide that by 42%, works out to something like 5,700 searches a month. Okay, so use that as your criteria. So what does that look like in terms of Market Samurai? Well, when we go to do the keyword analysis, you're going to see here, and let me turn the filters on for golden rules. And what's going to happen here is that the search engine traffic number is going to be 80, which is what we talked about. Okay, now let me turn this off. Okay, so somewhere around here I managed to really filter this down. What if I did 0 filters? Okay, so let me type these in myself. So I want phrase to broad of 15, and I want traffic of at least 80. Yeah, see how dramatically that reduces the universe of keywords, right? So now we went from like 66 to 8 keywords that are worth bidding on, meaning that there's not enough traffic in the other 86 combined roughly to make it worth your while to bid on them, or especially not to do your search engine optimization on them. Because imagine that you were actually doing your search engine optimization on some of those other keywords, and you were working your little fingers to the bone trying to get that #1 page ranking, and you got #1, #2, whatever, and it translated to 2 or 3 visitors a month. I mean, that would really hurt, right? So this tool is really important, and this criteria here is very important, and think about it as being at least 80. Now you'll notice if we reduce this, if we say 20, okay, and now we're going to have a lot more keywords, because even with the lower traffic, and here let's just do, all right, so you can see here that this goes down as far as 22 visitors a day, 33 visitors a day, 40 visitors a day. And it isn't until we get up to this here where we have over 80. Okay, so all of these underneath here wouldn't have enough traffic to be worth optimizing and bidding on, or at least not in isolation. Okay, now the exception to this, of course, is when you are interested in doing long tail keywords. Okay, so in that case, you're saying, well, yeah, these don't have much traffic, but they're highly relevant, and if I add them all up, then they easily come out to more than 80 a day. Individually, maybe they don't, but they're highly relevant, and collectively they're going to give me hundreds a day, so I'm going to go with it. And if you want to do that, if you want to work with longer tail, then you can reduce this number, because remember, the longer the tail, by definition, the lower the traffic. But when you're working with long tail keywords, you're going to generate a lot of them. Now here's the thing about long tail keywords. You can't optimize for a lot of keywords. I mean, you can't write content. For your content, you want to have 15 to 20 keywords that you're focused on most of the time. More than that is going to make you crazy, and it's going to be impossible to keep track of all your content. So for your content, for your SEO, you want to have the most highly trafficked, most highly valuable, most highly converting, the highest relevant keywords. But for your advertising, well, you can have as many of these long tail phrases as you want, because what the heck, you don't pay until people actually click on your keyword anyway. And so what if you have 150 of them? Once you put them in your AdWords account or in your MSN Ad Center account, they're sitting there, showing doing nothing until somebody clicks on it. So from an from a search engine marketing point of view, it's totally okay if you have a large collection of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of keywords, each of them with relatively little traffic. But for your search engine optimization, you absolutely do not want to do that. You want to focus on 15 to 20 keywords that are going to bring you enough traffic to make your blog, the number of visitors coming to your blog, worth it, so you build your list and you get a lot of opt-ins. Okay, so generally speaking, let's stick with the 80. Okay, and so you can see this would be our universe, and then what we're going to look for here. Well, let me just follow my guide so I don't get ahead of myself here. Okay, so volume. So the first criteria was relevance. Second one is volume. The third one is competition. So obviously, we would like to, especially if we're fairly small, businesses, we don't want to go up against the Goliaths, right? So we would like to work in a way that optimizes. We want to be guerrilla about it. We want to use keyword phrases that aren't going to have a lot of people with a lot of money competing against us. So what we want to do, if we're looking for competition as far as search engine optimization is concerned, well, the competition is the other sites and the other content. So we're looking for keyword phrases that have fewer websites that are competing for it, and also have lower authority. And authority usually means they have a lower page rank and fewer backlinks. And I'll show you how to find out which pages, which websites and which keywords are more likely to do this. Now, from a search marketing point of view, competition is the other advertisers. So what we're looking for is keyword phrases that have fewer advertisers, that is less competition, and that it doesn't cost us as much to pay for each click. So in other words, it's affordable and relatively not the highest of competition. So, if we're in an active, thriving market, we can't get away from the fact that there are going to be competitors, but we're going to try to find the ones that are not spending as much money, raising the cost per clicks up, and not in a market where we would really have to pay a lot to get anywhere in on that search engine results page. Because remember I said have enough money, anything's possible, but generally speaking, we don't want to just throw money at we don't want to just throw money to get up on this column here. So this is interesting. This used to have a lot more advertisers. I guess maybe see now this is an interesting thing too, right? That the more advertisers there are, the more likely profitable this keyword is. But then again, probably, when we look at this, competition is really thick, right? Like 3 at the top, we've got 7 or 8 along the side, and if you go and look here, you're probably going to find quite a few more. Oops. I don't want to log in now, never mind. Okay, so if you follow, it doesn't say more ads, sorry, that was a slightly little bit different. Okay, so this is not terrible because there's only, there aren't pages and pages and pages, but I'm guessing that there actually are when you dig into it a little bit more. This is probably because of the algorithm change. However, you can see this is probably a phrase, people like Herbal Magic Weight Watchers, Weight Loss Toronto, a Special K, these guys don't spend a little bit of money on their advertising, they spend a lot. And if these keywords weren't turning a profit for them, they probably wouldn't be bidding on them. So the chances are good that they're profitable, but the chances are that the amount of competition that there is for them and the amount that we'd have to pay to show up here and compete with them would be prohibitive, especially if we're just starting out. So in that case, what we'll do is we'll find where there are fewer advertisers, longer tail keywords, and we'll keep to our budget. So how does that show up on Market Samurai? Well, it shows up in a couple of different ways. So if we're looking at, so first of all, we want to take a look at the competition. So in this case, the number of advertisers bidding on a keyword. So we might want to say there's no more than 10 advertisers bidding on that keyword. Okay, now we're down to 3 keyword phrases. So let's say no more than 20. Okay, we've got a few more. And then this here, the SEOC, is the number of web pages that mention the term. So this is our search engine. These are when we're competing against other pages. So the number that they recommend here in Market Samurai is 30,000. So if there are more than 30,000 pages that come back as for those keyword phrases, then we're probably not going to want to compete on them. And you can see here, this is telling us we're not going to be very competitive in SEO for the keyword six-pack abs because there's a lot more than 30,000 pages on those keywords. So now we could do something like if we reduced the traffic number, well, even then it's not enough, see? So what this is telling you is that this is a very heavily competed keyword, and it would be hard to optimize for six-pack abs and make money at it. Now the only reason this shows up, I think, is because it happens to be my keyword phrase originally, but everything else pretty well has gone the way of the dodo. Okay, so we're looking at 50,000 results for the number of web pages that mention six-pack abs, and there's only one that has fewer than 50,000 results. Okay, so big problem there in terms of competing there, and so we would want to not necessarily compete. But let's say, for example, we don't care about the competition from a search engine. We're looking primarily for keywords to advertise on. Well, here then we want to say no more, let's say 15 advertisers, and I don't want to pay any more than, or at least AdWords cost per click minimum of 25 cents. All right, so this looks like a pretty good list to get started with. If I was going to get started, it's as good as any. Now remember, if I pulled all 800 out of my account, I probably would have a few more. This is just 8 because my original list was only 100. So imagine if I had 800, I'd probably have 65 keywords to get started on. And these are the ones that I would then throw into my AdWords account and start testing. Only because I want to see that I'm getting enough traffic and I'm bidding on keywords that convert. And now as I start to figure out which ones work, then I can go longer tail. I can get a longer tail of the keywords that are converting, and then I can get more and more and more traffic and incrementally increase my budget. Okay, so this is now again, this is kind of an overview what I recommend is you go through all the tutorials in the dojo, because it'll walk you through each one of these and how they work and how you want to select the keywords that you choose. But certainly this gives you an idea to get started. Now, I'll tell you another thing. When we're looking at competition, the other part of this that you want to look at is the SEO competition. So when you look at SEO competition, this module, what it's going to do is it's going to return the top 10 competitors in for that keyword phrase. Okay, probably need to go back and unfilter these things first. So no filters. Let me just remove all of these things for now. Okay, so now I've got 34 keywords. So now I go to the competition. Hopefully I'll be able to generate that table. Let me generate the results. Okay, so now it's looking at the keywords that I've chosen, and it's going to show me the top 10 search engine website results that are competing with me for those keywords. Now, what you're going to look for, and you can see this in the background as it's compiling it, you're going to get a sense of how competitive that market is for search engine optimization by the amount of red that you see on your screen. The more red, the harder it is to compete with. The more green, the easier it is to compete with. Now, I'm going to leave it to you as an exercise to go to the dojo and find out what each of these means. But essentially, these are some of the criteria that determine for search engine optimization how likely it is that your site is going to show up in the Google search engine results pages for these keywords. So DA is domain age, PR is page rank, IC is index count, backlink to individual pages, backlink to domains, and so on and so forth. How many keywords that are in the title, the URL, the description, the header. All of these things are criteria for optimizing, and that we're going to talk about actually, optimizing your web pages. So if there's green in here, that means that that's where these sites are not optimized for search engine. On the other hand, if there's red, it means you're going to have a tough time competing with them. So for example, we're looking at this, and we could say that out of the top 10, you have an opportunity, like this one here, that have only 27 pages indexed. However, they do have 37,000 backlinks. So the page rank's not very high. The domain age is fairly new. So it's a fairly new domain with not a lot of page rank and authority, not a lot of pages indexed in the search engines, but a whole lot of backlinks. Now, that's basically saying that if you knew how to get that many backlinks quick, like if you had an automated way of doing it or something, and you could find a domain age, let's say that you bought a domain that happened to be 6 years old in this space, which had a page rank and authority, you could automatically compete with them as long as you optimized your title, URL, description, and header. However, look at it compared to this. You're going to do very well against sixpackabsnow.org because the domain is fairly recent. It's not even a year old. The page rank is pretty good. It's 4, but it's not 5, 6, or 7. Not a lot of, less than 30 pages indexed, and not a whole lot of backlinks yet. I mean, this is, with a little bit of concerted effort, you could catch up to that. And if you put if you got your pages indexed in the DMOZ and Yahoo directories, and if you optimized your title, your description, and your header tags, you would be in great shape to compete and take over this spot, the number 6 spot. You could also very easily look like you could take over the number 8 spot, because look at how few backlinks they have, and 0 page rank, so 0 authority, and the domain age, they haven't even been around very much. So, what this is saying is that you could actually, if you optimize on these keywords and you did a good job of, putting your, getting backlinks and indexing a lot of content, a lot of fresh new pages, and make sure that all of your titles, URLs, and descriptions and heading tags were optimized for these keywords, that you could show up in the, let's say 6th, 7th, and 8th position reasonably well, reasonably easily. Now, weirdly enough, you're not going to compete with Men's Health, so you can forget that, because you're not going to get 3 million backlinks. And this one here has 496,000 pages indexed, but weirdly enough, it doesn't have a page rank, and none of it is optimized. So it's possible you could sneak past this one as well. this looks like a news site or an aggregation site or something like that, which, you know, maybe because of the recent changes in Google, it got dumped quite a bit. So, you know, on a scale of like 1 to 5, this is about between a 4 and a 6 in terms of your ability to create SEO content that stands a chance of jumping onto page 1. But you do have to do, you know, you have to get a few thousand pages of content. You've got to get a few hundred or possibly a few thousand backlinks, and you've got to optimize your titles and keywords. If you're in a position to be able to do that, and if you want to outsource to somebody who can do that, then you could compete on page 1 for six-pack abs and the variations of it. Okay, so this is the great thing about the tool. In an instant, you can see what your chances are of, you know, showing up on page 1 of the search engine results for the keywords that you selected. Okay. So we now have competition as our third criteria. So we had relevance, we had traffic, and competition. Now, next thing we want to do is we want to look at, whoops, there we go. Let me put this back here. Okay, the next thing we want to look at is that we want to look at both the number and strength of competition, right? So we talked about this. So for SEM, budget is your competition. You want to bid on words that have at least 25%, and probably these days it's probably closer to 50%. But if the bid price, the cost per click, isn't at least 25 cents, then there's probably not enough profit in it to make it worthwhile. Because if people aren't even willing to pay 25 cents for it, then there's probably either not enough traffic or it's not commercially viable. On the top end, you know, this is entirely up to you and your budget. I would recommend not go beyond $2, you know, to start until you can make that profitable. You know, start at 50 cents, 65 cents, and just know that you're going to get less traffic because you're not going to show up at the top of the advertising column, but you're going to get your fair share, and you're going to get a chance to get started and get testing. And as that starts to turn a profit, then you can raise your bid to $1, $1.50, $2, and however high you want to go. As long as it's profitable, you can keep going, right? So for SEO, authority is your competition, and that's what we looked at just now. When we look at this graph, this is basically the authority graph. Okay, and like I said, if you happen to have a lot of green on there, you're in great shape. Go compete. If you have a lot of red, go reanalyze those keywords. Okay, generally speaking, we want to optimize what we do so that we're working in such a way that we're not fighting the Goliath. Right, so we're not going head-to-head against the keywords that have the most number of pages, have the most competition, that people are spending the most money on, that they have the most backlinks on, and so on and so forth. We want to find keywords that have enough traffic that we could make a reasonable bid to be able to either get on the search engine results page or in the advertising columns fairly high up so that we get our fair share of traffic. When you get good and when you get a lot of backlinks and a lot of index and so on, if you want to take on the Goliath, you can, but don't start there for sure. And actually, you may find you never need to go there. Okay, so generally speaking, that's what I would do if I were you in terms of keyword research. Walk through the process of doing this for every keyword. Now, the other thing that you'll do, if we go back to keyword research, the other thing that you can do here, for example, is if you want to get lateral phrases or long tail phrases, let's say, for example, you say six-pack abs fast. You click the key here, that basically starts a new keyword column. Okay, and then you could do the same thing on the phrase six-pack abs fast that you did for six-pack abs. You can do your keyword research, you can do your SEO competition, and you could get longer tail and more specific and more relevant, and you could do that for as many of these keywords as you wanted. So let's say diet. Let's say you wanted to focus on diet. Okay, so another column might be diet. You do the same thing here. You know, you do your keyword research, and so on. So you could. So what you'll do here is you'll sort of dig deeper and deeper into these long tail phrases. And as long as you're finding enough traffic with fairly low competition, and that you can compete with in terms of authority against the page rank, and the words continue to be relevant, then you could go get as many tabs, as many lateral keywords and so on as you possibly can. Okay, so let that work in the background. And the last thing, and we talked about this a little bit already, but the strength, when we're defining strength, just to give you some numbers to put on it, if Market Samurai usually says that if you're doing SEO optimization, if you're optimizing your content for certain keyword phrases. If there are 30,000 pages or more, 30,000 or more other website pages of content, that's going to be hard for you to compete on the basis of how much content there is. So one of the criteria you want to use is 30,000 pages or less of content when you're doing search engine optimization. And then you want to look at the quality of the content, the age of the domain, and the backlinks using that graph that I was showing you here a second ago. Okay, the SEO competition graph. Okay, let's generate results for this. And while it's finding results, let's keep moving the presentation to the final thing. Looks like it got, which is the buyer or the commercial intent. So this is probably, you know, one of the biggest ones, right? Because you could have highly relevant keywords, you get a lot of traffic, and you can compete very effectively on it, but you find out that nobody buys anything. Okay, so this this is pretty tricky, right? Because you're now going to be spending all this money, or you're going to do all this search engine optimization, and you're going to get a lot of people joining your list possibly. You're going to get a lot of people visiting your landing pages, but they never buy anything and they never convert, right? So really important for you to think about how profitable a keyword phrase can be. And one of the ways to do that is to think about how much money flows through this keyword phrase in the context of how much advertisers are willing to spend. Because remember before I said when people spend a lot of money on advertising, on AdWords and so on, they typically don't tend to do it if it starts to lose the money. That except in the rare occasions where they just want to do it for branding and they want to dominate the market and they've got tens of millions of dollars to spend. But the average, on average, that's not typical, right? Typically, if people are spending money, they want to see results, and if they're not getting click-throughs, then they're not going to be willing to bid as much for those keyword phrases, if at all. And so the cost per click is actually a very good indicator of how commercially viable that phrase is. So if you're finding that not a lot of other advertisers are bidding for that keyword phrase, or if there are advertisers but they're not willing to bid very much, that's an indication that those keywords, there's not a lot of commercial intent. The commercial viability, the commerciality of those keywords is fairly low. Now, of course, you know, if you have to put that together with search engine traffic, because if you have a keyword phrase where, you know, people are bidding $5 a keyword, but there's only 100 searches a month, you have another one that, you know, people are bidding only $1, but there's, you know, 500,000 searches a month. Well, you know, there's a whole different equation. If there's that much traffic, even though the cost is lower, it's still commercially viable for you compared to the opposite, where people are paying more. So on the surface, you go, aha, good commercial intent, high cost per click, but not enough traffic to justify it. So the metric that we're going to use to get a sense of how commercially viable this is the thing that we call search engine SEOV, search engine optimization volume, which is the cost per click multiplied by the search engine optimization traffic that we talked about. And again, you know, Market Samurai will do this for you. Let me just go ahead and cancel this. And if we go back to Six-Pack Abs, where we have, here's the search engine SEO volume. And as you can see by the description, this is the total daily value of traffic that a website ranked #1 in Google for a keyword could potentially achieve. So remember we said if you had 1,000, you'd probably get 42% of them coming through on the click. You multiply that by how much they get per click, and that's how much it's worth. Now if you sort this in descending order, then you're going to see what the value of this is. Okay, and at some point, you know, if you apply the golden rule filters, it's recommending that you use an SEO value of at least $30 a day. Okay, and so based on that number, none of the keywords, except actually our root phrase, qualifies. Or maybe, let me take out the competition here. Let me see if I can, yeah, let me take that out. I'm just going to try to get a few more of the words to show up again. All right, let's do this. Let's put no filters on it again. Okay, and we're going to use search engine optimization traffic of 80. We're going to use the phrase to broad match ratio of 15, and we're going to use SEO value of 30. Okay, there we go. So now we're finding that, you know, there's at least, now we may find that the competition, see I didn't actually put a maximum of 30,000 here. So we may find the competition's a little bit high, and in fact if you look here you'll see it is quite high, right? You look at these search engine numbers, the competition goes up to 16,500,000 pages, so you probably don't want to compete directly on that. But that's why the, you know, the search engine volume turns out to be fairly high. But notice here, right, that the difference here is that there's 3.2 million pages, like the content, competition, but the commercial value is 55, but here there's 16.5 million pages of content, but advertisers are only willing to pay 34 cents. So there's a, you know, there's a huge difference in the SEO value. Now, if these numbers were flipped around, because it's kind of interesting, right, that they're actually paying less, even though there are more pages, right? Isn't that interesting? You would expect the opposite to be true, that if there's that much more content, then it must be therefore much more profitable. But it turns out advertisers are not willing to pay as much, even though there's a whole lot more content, for the phrase get six-pack abs compared to the phrase six-pack abs. Interesting, right? So there you go. There's an example where the fewer competitors, the fewer other pages there are, but the more commercially viable it is, overall makes it a much more highly commercial intent keyword phrase. So if you were going to, if you had your choice, your druthers, you would probably want to use the exact match of six-pack abs, and so that you're not bidding on get six-pack abs or how to get a six-pack ab. If you only had a certain amount of budget, you wanted to allocate it to your best, you know, your likely most profitable keyword, then you would bid on the exact match of six-pack abs, because it's far and away the most, 10 times more profitable than the next ones, right? So that's how you can use these numbers. Now look, you know, I gave you some guidelines, but a lot of this you're going to have to mix and match and play with, because you may decide that you don't need an SEO value of 30, that you'd be happy with an SEO value of 20, or vice versa. Or you may find that 30,000 pages is a lot of not enough competition. You're willing to have 50 or 100,000 pages. This is all kind of going to depend on your situation. But if you use the metrics that we started with, and the easy way to do that is just use the golden rules preset, then it's going to do all the work for you. Now this has there's something in here that's causing it to really reduce down to 1, but I'm not sure what it is. But anyway, and you could do these on weekly, or if you prefer to think about the numbers like traffic numbers and so on monthly, then you could make your period monthly instead of daily. But then you have to remember the numbers you put up here are going to have to reflect the numbers, the period that you choose here. So in this case it's daily. Okay, so commerciality, you always look at the value here, make sure it's above 30, and what this value represents is the multiplier of traffic times cost per click. The higher the number, the more likely you're going to find those keywords to be profitable. Okay? All right, before we move into SEO Essentials, I see a couple of questions here. Let me see if I can help you out. Does Market Samurai work for keywords in Spanish? I think so. I think there's a way to specify it up front. 1 second, Mariette. I think the place you do that is in project settings. Here you go. Okay, so you can use Spanish here, and you could even isolate it, to Spain if you wanted to. But it is obviously able to handle a lot of different languages. Okay, and let me see, what's the next question? Hi Lou. They are filtered by the keyword analysis criteria you set. Oh yeah, thanks Arturo. Okay, and then Anthony says, Lou, what strategy would you recommend to break into a Goliath keyword market if you have a new angle solution? For example, with ED, would you recommend another angle to get attention, such as a blog with SEO? Yeah, that's a tough one. You'd have to go through the whole process here, and if you're doing a blog with SEO, you're gonna want to go through this process of finding out what the competition is, how many pages there are for the keywords that you're going to optimize your SEO, right? Because remember, SEO, and we're going to do this in the next section, which I think I'm going to have to motor through. SEO is a combination of content. It's a combination of placement in directories, backlinks, Relevancy, it's a matter of how well you optimize. So, if you're setting up a, a blog with an SEO and you're optimizing the content on that for keywords that are highly competed, then you're still going up against the Goliath. So the blog with SEO structure is probably okay, but you want to be really careful that the keywords, like the domain that you choose for the blog, the keywords you use in the title, the categories that you set up your blog with, that they're all going to be the ones that are longer tail, not heavily competed, not expensive keywords that may be directly or laterally related to ED. Okay, so I think when you're going up in those markets against the Goliaths, you're either going to have to spend a lot of time and money, or you're going to have to get really smart and grow slow. Start with those long tail keywords and the ones that are not enough traffic for these guys to spend their focus and attention on, but enough traffic to get you a foothold, a toehold, and then build from there. So don't fight strength with strength until you've built the strength, and you build the strength by creating a blog with SEO with authority and backlinks and page rank and directory presence and highly optimized and relevant links and all those kinds of things. Not an easy thing to do. Just because you use a blog and these other guys are advertising doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to show up, because let's face it, if they're advertising, it probably means there's enough other content out there, literally millions of pages in all likelihood, that you're going to be competing for those top 10 with. So work through the whole process we talked to today, and specifically pay attention to this thing here, the SEO competition. If you can find a set of keywords that doesn't specifically say ED, for example, but it's clearly related to ED, and you can get a graph of the top 10 for those keywords here that's largely green and yellow, then I think you're on to a winner. That's what I would be looking for. What if my core business is in a highly competitive environment? I have no choice but to deal with lots of Goliaths. Well, just as I was saying to Anthony, you're not competing with the Goliaths if you're not bidding on the same keywords that they are, right? So when it comes to driving traffic, where you advertise, i.e. which keywords you choose to bid on, and which keywords you choose to optimize for, may not be the same ones that the big guys are going for. Yes, if you choose those keywords, then you're up against it. But what you're looking for is longer tail keywords. You're looking for more unique angles. Maybe you're looking for slang and keyword phrases. Maybe you're looking for geographical territories that they may not be bidding on. You may be looking at different languages. I mean, a whole bunch of different things. But if you compete for the core phrases at top dollar with these guys, you're fighting a tough battle on SEO and advertising. Okay, so follow the principles we talked about today, and same as Anthony, I would say look for those few keywords that the big guys don't find it's worth their while to compete in, because these guys have overhead costs, right? I remember when I was in corporate America, if we couldn't get a project that would make $10 million, it wasn't even a business case, because given the factories that we had and the overhead we had and the employees we had and the benefits and all that stuff, if our business case couldn't justify 10 million bucks, it was a non-starter. And so that was a whole open arena for somebody for whom $10 million was a whole lot of money. For our company, it wasn't, and so you may find things like that even in the finance industry. It's not going to be easy, but that is kind of where I would apply my focus. Jonathan says, I have 6 keywords at 1,900 searches a month for relevant keywords. Is this viable to create SEO? Yeah, but barely, yeah. Because 6 times 19, what is that, 78? So you've got less than 10,000 searches a month, which means that if you're in the number 1 spot, you're going to get 4,200 searches a month. Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone through the commercial viability of those keywords necessarily, so I don't know 100%. But I would say it's a decent place to get started, Jonathan, but I'd be looking for a lot more keywords, longer tail, greater volume, or maybe semantic lateral keywords, concepts that are related to what you're doing, but not necessarily the very same keywords. I'd want to get that up. It's not a bad place to start, right? But I'd want to get that up, to 20, 30, 50, 100,000 searches overall. Because it's amazing how, what do I want to say? even though there are 10,000 searches a month, you know, how many times do you click on something, you know, on an ad? So even though you're showing up in the top position on an ad, for example, if you're bidding on AdWords, you could show up 1,000 times before anybody clicks on it. So even though, you know, there's a 42% chance that someone who clicks on the top position ad, but there isn't a 42% chance that they're going to click on every ad that displays, right? There's a far lesser chance that they're going to actually do that. So I think the more you can have, the better. Err on the side of needing many more, and start with what you have. I mean, it doesn't start bad. It doesn't, you know, you're around 8,000 keywords. It's not a bad place to start, but look for more, Jonathan. Because remember, you only pay for the keywords that people click on. So you can have a whole lot of them, and collectively they'll bring enough traffic for you. But I think it's a good start, but I would look for a lot more. And 32 cents per click. Yeah, that's not bad. It's not a bad place to be. Organic SEO. Yeah, but same thing, Jonathan. So just follow what we talked about and come to your own conclusions, right? Organic SEO, same kind of deal, right? You have to make sure that there isn't a lot of competition for those 7,800 keywords, and that you know, there aren't a lot of sites with a lot of backlinks, and you want to make sure that they're commercially viable, right? So just follow the process with the keywords that you have, and see how it works out. For SEO, I'd personally want to have a lot more traffic than that, frankly, Jonathan. That doesn't feel like enough to me yet. So keep looking. Start there, work with those, but keep looking, keep building out, please. I highly recommend you expand that. And Xuling says, thanks, this is very useful. I've been using Goliath keyword, which explains the lack of success. Yeah, and hopefully, Xuling, not a whole lot, it hasn't cost you a lot of money. You know, because it's one thing when you don't get traffic, but it's another thing when you get traffic and pay $5 a click. then it hurts on both fronts, right? So good, yeah, give this a try, and hopefully you'll get a little bit better results. Excellent. Okay, look, one thing I would recommend to you is, you know, try this. Go through the dojo at Market Samurai and implement this, because it's one thing to sort of see it and hear it and kind of understand it, but I find that it really gets into your bones, and you really start to understand it at a level, a much deeper level, when you actually try it. So walk through the things we've walked through, go through the dojo, and then do the exercise for your keywords. See if you can find, you know, 100 keywords with, you know, 25,000 visitors a month traffic for your market. And then what we're going to talk about next then is, once you have those keywords, you know, those top 15 or 20 keywords, now we're going to talk about how do you write content on your blog and on your articles and so on, so that you can optimize the likelihood that people are actually going to, that Google is going to show your search engine results and bring people to your content based on that.